The past fades away like smoke. Stars entangle the night with dreams. Liu Ruyan reminds you to connect to Wi-Fi. Prepare your chips. The main text begins. I was hit by a bus. Just when I was waiting for rescue and about to die. Someone claiming to be the system saved me. He said in exchange, I needed to marry Liu Ruyan, successfully win him over. But if I failed, I would be punished. At that moment, I only wanted to survive. I agreed. Later, I started treating him doubly well. What started with purpose gradually turned into sincerity. We fell in love. We knew each other for 10 years, faded for 5 years. Everyone thought we would make it to the wedding altar. But later, he married Yangzi, my mom's, my so-called brother. On stage, Liu Ruyan smiled sweetly. It deeply pierced my eyes. My heart felt like it was being devoured by 1,000 ants. Being eaten away. Host's punishment will begin soon. Please be prepared. The system once again spoke, pulling back my thoughts. My tightly clenched hand loosened as it fell to the ground. I closed my eyes in self-mockery. I don't know how much time passed. The system said the punishment was over. I came to my senses. My body didn't feel much different, but there was a dull discomfort in my chest, as if something was missing. But I couldn't quite tell what it was. In a daze, a tear slipped from the corner of my eye. I wiped it away, expressionless. Then I heard my mom's voice say, there's plenty of grass elsewhere. You're still young. You don't have to be with him. Besides, you and Yan Yan are not a good match. Yeah, I'm not a good match. But your first love son is? I glanced at him, slowly letting the words come out. Although I no longer had emotions, I still remembered what had happened before. When I was 8 years old, my mom brought Guzi home from the orphanage and took him in as her godson. Everything good in the house was offered to him. At first, I just thought my mom pitied him. But it wasn't until she left all her property to him, sent him abroad for studies, bought him mansions and luxury cars, that I finally understood. It turns out my mom was carrying the love for her first crush onto him. She gave everything good to the son of her first love, and I was like an unwanted wild child. When he found out Zhangzi liked my girlfriend, he asked me to give up willingly. He said that someone like me wasn't worthy of Liu Ruyan. He also said Zizi had a higher education, broader vision, and more money than me. Mom urged me to give up sooner rather than later. My mom paused, thinking I was being sarcastic. She gritted her teeth and said, Zizi is indeed better than you. Or why would Yan Yan marry him? She always knew how to stab right into my heart. If it were the old me, I would have been furious, eyes burning red. But now, no matter what she says, I don't feel hurt anymore. If you think he's better than me, then fine, he's better. I don't care anymore. My words caught her off guard, and her gaze at me became slightly different. For a long moment, it seemed like she thought I was just pretending not to care. A moment ago, she had been about to say something. But in the end, she only pressed her lips together. The event continued. Zhangzi came over, holding a glass of wine, surrounded by the blessings of the guests. My mom couldn't wait to stand up. Zhangzi came over and immediately locked his gaze on me, pretending to be innocent. I thought my brother would resent me for not attending the wedding. Now it seems I was overthinking it. I nodded, expressionlessly replying, indeed, you were overthinking. He paused. You're not sad? Not jealous. I don't understand. Why should I be sad? Why should I be jealous? The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. His hand holding the wine glass tightened a bit, as if he was trying to calm his emotions. Well, since my brother doesn't mind, then I can rest easy. We just bought our new house for the wedding, but we haven't had the time to decorate it yet. When you're free, help us design the wedding home. I casually replied, just as Liu Ruyan came over. Zhangzi added, "Brother, aren't you going to call her sister-in-law?" My mom chimed in, urging me to say it, even asking me to offer them my blessings. I simply said, "May you have children soon," then looked at Liu Ruyan and called her sister-in-law. The smile on her face was unmistakable. Zhangzi smiled too, though his gaze at me carried a hint of complexity and detachment. Faced with this, my heart remained still, like dead water, unable to stir a single ripple. In my heart, it was just a few words, nothing more. No other thoughts behind them. But as the event was ending, Zhangzi told me to stay away from Liu Ruyan from now on. He also said that Liu Ruyan's true love was him, even calling out his name in her dreams at night. Suddenly, a flood of memories filled my mind. Back in my freshman year, Liu Ruyan had a fever of 40 degrees. Her mind was nearly burnt to confusion. But she kept calling my name, grasping my hand tightly. Later, I stayed in the hospital, caring for her without sleep for 3 days and nights. I was unshaven and a complete mess. When she woke up and saw me, she cried immediately, feeling sorry, asking why I didn't rest. She called me foolish, but not long after, she confessed to me, saying she wouldn't marry anyone else in this lifetime but me. But for some reason, she changed her mind and married my so-called brother. If I still had feelings, I wouldn't have been able to accept it. I might have even caused a scene. But now, to me, it all seems irrelevant. I calmly replied to Zhangzi, "She loves you the most." Then I turned and left. I sat on the chair, gazing at the photo of me and Liu Ruyan on the table. My thoughts drifted away. Liu Ruyan was a transfer student at our school. She used to be a rich heiress. But after her family went bankrupt, she transferred from a prestigious school to ours because of her striking looks. On the very first day, all the girls in our class mocked her. The boys, taking advantage of the situation, would group up after school, cornering Liu Ruyan in a rundown alley, whistling, acting sleazy, teasing her. They said if she kissed each one of them, they'd help her deal with those girls. Thinking about how the system said she was my target, I stepped in to save her. From then on, I always protected her. During summer vacation, she blushed and asked if I could accompany her to a competition. I asked her why me. She lowered her head, her hands fidgeting. She said, "Because you can protect me. But I can't protect you forever. We'll have to part ways someday." She paused, then looked up, her tone innocent. "Then can't we stay together forever? Do you know what it means to be together forever?" She nodded with reddened ears, then whispered, "It means we'll be like grown-ups." She said, "Grown-ups are like my mom and dad." She even said that she would definitely marry me in the future and be my wife. But in the end, it was all nothing. Promises were even more fleeting than air. I threw that photo of us into the trash and began packing my things. I was planning to move out and rent a place somewhere closer to my work. Before I finished packing, there was a knock at the door. It was Liu Ruyan. When she saw my suitcase, her face turned pale. She quickly stepped in and shut the door behind her. Feng, there's a reason I married Zhangzi. My company is on the rise, and I need to leverage his connections. Once my company stabilizes, once I succeed in my business, I'll divorce him. Besides, he's been holding on to what rightfully belongs to you. When I become powerful, I can help you take it back. Feng, please don't stay silent, okay? I told you before, even though I'm married, we can still be together. We just need to get through these 2 years. As she spoke, she threw herself at me, rubbing against me, even lifting her head to kiss my chin. But when her eyes met my cold gaze, she suddenly stopped. She stared at me. Double quotes, her lips moved, but no words came. Finally, she let go of me. Take some time to cool off these few days. I've told you everything I needed to say. As she turned to leave, she glanced at the trash can and immediately froze. Turning back, she asked in disbelief, "You threw away our photo? Just because I got married, you threw it away?" A Feng, deep down that I love you the most. I didn't understand, and emotionlessly asked her, "You're married. Why do you still love me? Shouldn't you be loving your husband?" Her face fell at my words, and her eyes filled with emotions too complicated to read. I didn't want to waste my energy figuring them out. From downstairs, my mom's voice called us for dinner, yelling for us to come down. Liu Ruyan fled like a frightened wolf. At the dinner table, my mom had made a whole spread of Zhangzi's favorite dishes. She kept putting food on his plate, telling him to eat more for his health. "Mom, I'm already grown. There's no more growing to do." The way they interacted was like real mother and son. Zhangzi affectionately turned to Liu Ruyan, whining, "Wife, I want to eat that fish." Liu Ruyan seemed distracted, responding absent-mindedly. Zhangzi didn't notice, instead throwing me a smug, challenging smile. Then he said, "Brother, don't forget about the design for the new house. My wife and I are waiting to move in." I took a sip of the soup and casually replied, "Sure." Then came a dry chuckle, followed by the grating sound of metal hitting the floor. Liu Ruyan, with a forced smile, said, "Oops." My hand slipped and the spoon fell. She got up to wash it in the kitchen. My mom placed a piece of shrimp on my plate, telling me, "Make sure you design the house well for your brother and sister-in-law. That's where they'll be living in the future." I returned the shrimp to her bowl, saying flatly, "I'm allergic to shrimp." Her hand paused midair, but I added, "Don't worry, I'll design it well. There's no need to doubt my expertise." I slowly sipped the only soup that tasted decent, speaking leisurely, but not long after finishing, my vision suddenly went black. Just before I lost consciousness, I vaguely heard Liu Ruyan's voice calling out. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in a hospital bed, the room filled with the scent of disinfectant. The first thing my mom did was shove her phone in my face. She snapped, "Why didn't you say earlier that you couldn't eat shrimp?" The internet is flooded with rumors that Zhangzi deliberately caused harm, leading to your hospitalization. Musa, when you wake up, you need to clarify this. I recalled that it was me using the chopsticks to grab the shrimp that caused this. For over 20 years, I've always been allergic to shrimp. As I've gotten older, the reactions have only grown more severe. Seeing me lost in thought, she impatiently repeated herself. She also said that to avoid future disputes over inheritance, which might affect my relationship with Zhangzi, she had transferred all the property to Zhangzi. I rubbed my slightly numb arm and calmly said, "Whatever." She had always favored Zhangzi, so it wasn't surprising to hear her say this. Besides, to me now, nothing mattered anymore. Nothing could affect me. I felt like a robot, completely lifeless, but it seemed my mom hadn't expected me to agree so easily. Judging by her reaction, she had likely prepared to argue with me. "When I'm discharged, I'll move out of the family house. I won't cause Zhangzi any trouble going forward." She pursed her lips, awkwardly saying, "Don't think your mom is being unfair. If it hadn't been for your father, I would have married Zhangzi's father. Then you wouldn't have existed." "Yes, I know." I cut her off, slowly saying, "You should go now. Zhangzi probably still needs you to handle things." She didn't say another word. She left without another word. During my hospital stay, Zhangzi came to visit me every few days, trying to maintain his image as a caring older brother. He wanted to dispel the rumors, but only I knew the truth. Every time he came, he'd say the same thing. "I told you, you'll never beat me. No matter what you have, I'll always take it." He's been saying that to me for as long as I can remember. In my memory, he's always loved taking things from me. He would always say, "All of this should have been mine. The money, the resources, even the people. They all belong to me." But I remember it was my father who worked hard to earn all of this. After he passed away early, everything was left to my dad. And then my mom gave it all to Zhongzi. A close friend from abroad called me. And the first thing he said was, "They've gone too far. I still have an apartment in Beguian. I'll send you the address. And the keys are with Uncle Zhang. No need, I'm capable of renting a place myself." After being discharged, I went home to pack my things. Unexpectedly, I ran into Zhongzi and Liu Ruyan. He had his arm around her waist, smiling brightly as he greeted me. "Brother, you're back just in time. Help us film a video to post online. Your sister-in-law's been asking to make one." Liu Ruyan subtly avoided eye contact with me. I put my things down and reached for the phone. But Zhongzi was quicker. And the phone fell to the floor. 7,760. "I thought you'd catch it, brother." I didn't respond, just bent down to pick up the phone while I was filming. Zhongzi suddenly said, "Oh, right. Weren't you planning to move out? I had Aunt Wang pack up all your things. My wife and I's new home won't be ready for another 2 or 3 years. If we have a baby, we'll have nowhere to put it. So I figured we could turn your room into a nursery. You don't mind, right, brother?" He smiled the whole time, using a tone as if he were negotiating. I calmly replied, "I don't mind. I'll take my things and leave soon." Liu Ruyan's face turned grim. I stood at the door with my suitcase, waiting for a car. My mom called, telling me that the company was launching a new product in 2 days, and that there would be a press conference. She asked me to attend and clarify the situation. "All right, I'll be there in 2 days." As soon as I hung up, my ride arrived. But before I could get in, Liu Ruyan came running over, grabbing my arm, panting, and saying she'd take me. I firmly refused. "No need. Brother might get the wrong idea." She furrowed her brow, staring at me, and angrily asked Shifeng, "Do you have to make me feel this disgusted? All of this is fake." Before I could respond, she grabbed my luggage and threw it into her car. The ride was silent. Every so often, she glanced over at me. Midway, the car suddenly stopped. She yanked me over, gritting her teeth, and asked, "Haven't you had enough of this yet?" "Shifeng, I have a temper too. I've already explained everything to you. I married Zhongzi because I had no choice. No choice at all. Once my company is back on track, I'll divorce him. Why can't you just understand me?" Her eyes were bloodshot, as if she might burst into tears any second. But I didn't feel much at all. I glanced down at my wristwatch and responded flatly, "The landlord has something for me at 5. If you're not leaving, please unlock the trunk. I'll walk the rest of the way." Liu Ruyan laughed in frustration. As I was about to get out of the car, she suddenly grabbed my neck, kissing and biting recklessly. No matter what she did, I remained unresponsive, cold as a robot. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore and pushed me away. But when her eyes met my calm, emotionless gaze, the words she wanted to say got stuck in her throat. Her eyes filled with disbelief. "Shifeng, you're really not the same as before." I didn't sense the change she was talking about. I simply repeated, "The landlord needs me at 5. Please open the trunk." She opened her mouth a few times, but in the end said nothing. She just stared at me, red-eyed, as I got out of the car. There was still quite a distance to my destination. If I walked, it would take about an hour. But there were no taxis available here on this stretch, so I just kept walking. It was June, and no matter the time of day, the heat was unbearable. I hadn't walked far before my t-shirt was soaked in sweat. Just then, a sports car stopped in front of me. A woman wearing sunglasses greeted me. "Got dumped halfway by your sister-in-law, huh? She doesn't want you anymore." I didn't respond. She kept following me, repeating the same things, how Liu Ruyan had abandoned me and married Zhongzi. After saying it a few times, she seemed to lose interest. Get in the car, I'll give you a lift. As soon as I sat down, she said, we're in the same boat. She told me she was Zhangzi's ex-girlfriend. They'd only been apart for a month, and then he suddenly announced his engagement. Feng, let's get married. You can get back at your ex, and I'll get back at Zhangzi. By the way, I'm richer than both of them. If you're with me, you won't need to rent a place anymore. You can just move into my villa. You can do whatever you want. If you're short on money, I'll take care of you. Just then, my phone buzzed with a message from the landlord, saying someone else had rented the place. Alright, I said, looking at Feng Yixin. I asked if I'm with you. Can I move into the villa tonight? Of course, she replied with a smirk. Soon after, we were back at her place, and we quickly registered our marriage. She grabbed my phone and posted to updates to my social media. She also mentioned that our wedding would be held at S5 next month. I glanced down at my designs, feeling little to no emotion, whether living alone or with someone. It made no difference to me. It didn't change anything for me. On the other hand, she kept taking pictures all day long. On the day of the press conference, a reporter asked about my relationship with Zhangzi. I simply said it's good. They didn't press further, as most of the reporters were arranged by my mom. After the interviews, I was getting ready to leave from the back. But then I saw Liu Ruyan standing in the doorway, her face dark and brooding. Before I could approach her, she stormed toward me in her high heels, dragging me to a secluded spot. She demanded, "You got married? Do you even know her? How could you just get married? How could you be so careless? How could you abandon me and marry her? You used to care about me so much. Why has it come to this?" By the end, she was already crying. Feng, you said you'd only love me in this lifetime. You promised you'd marry me in the end. And now you're married to someone else? Her sobs choked her words, but I still felt nothing. Liu Ruyan clung to me again, with her tear-streaked face, demanding I divorce her. Before I could say anything, Feng Yixin appeared. She shoved Liu Ruyan aside, her gaze full of disgust. What are you pulling at him for? He's my husband now. And by the way, calling you sister-in-law was out of respect and politeness. But if you keep meddling in my marriage, watch yourself. You'll get more than you bargained for. Feng Yixin's harsh tone made Liu Ruyan look even more pitiful. But when Feng turned back to me, her demeanor shifted again, narrowing her eyes and smiling sweetly. My feet hurt. I want you to carry me out, she said. I nodded and lifted her up. Feng Yixin nestled in my arms, pouting. You have no idea how long I was waiting for you outside. Not only did my feet get sore, but you even met up with your ex behind my back. When we get home, you're cooking for me personally. I replied with little emotion, simply saying okay. But as soon as we stepped out, I heard the sound of chairs being violently thrown behind us. How does that feel? Satisfied? She grinned, asking me, do you feel like you've avenged yourself on that girl? I didn't understand. Never mind, dummy, she said. Let's go home and cook. I want sweet and sour pork, made by you. Feng Yixin laughed, saying she couldn't understand how Liu Ruyan could abandon such a great boyfriend like me. After dinner, she let out a contented sigh. Feng, I really hit the jackpot with you. She added, at first, I married you just to spite Zhangzi. But after just a few days, I realized you're different from other guys. I think I won't be able to live without you in the future, she said, lying in my arms. But to me, all of this felt insignificant and meaningless. After carrying Feng Yixin back to the bedroom, I resumed working on Zhangzi and Liu Ruyan's new house design. Zhangzi had asked me to bring the plans to him the next day. He said he was in a rush. The following afternoon, I went to his office with the design. The secretary told me to wait in the lobby while Zhangzi finished his work. I waited for 3 or 4 hours before finally being let in. Brother, sorry to keep you waiting, he said. Come have some dessert first. Your sister-in-law made it especially for me. Zhangzi didn't look at my design right away. Instead, he started talking about how much Liu Ruyan cared for him. He went on and on, but I just nodded indifferently each time. As I kept responding casually, the smile on his face gradually faded. He stepped closer, staring at me intently, and asked, "Your girlfriend became my wife, and she still treats me so well. You're not angry?" I shook my head. "No, I'm not angry." He laughed out loud, clearly becoming more frustrated. He glanced at my design, flipping it back and forth, before tossing it onto the floor. "What kind of garbage design is this? You say you're not angry? If you weren't mad, would you design something so terrible? Shaifeng, admit it, you're just jealous." He looked at me with a twisted expression. Then I remembered how he sabotaged me during the college entrance exams, hoping I'd fail. I ended up at an average university, while he went to an international elite school. On the first day of school, he wore that same cruel smile, saying, "Shaifeng, I love seeing you jealous of me. It makes me feel accomplished." He also said he enjoyed bullying me, that he wanted to keep stepping on me for the rest of our lives. My expression remained calm, and I bent down to pick up the design from the floor. But before I could stand up, he brought a lit cigarette close to my face, sneering, "Let's see if this doesn't make you angry." Without much reaction, the cigarette burned my eye directly. I took a few steps back, hearing Zhangzi's laughter. Then I heard Liu Ruyan's voice. Seeing this, Zhangzi quickly put on an innocent act. "Brother, it's all my fault. I didn't see it. Are your eyes okay?" "Secretary Su, call a doctor immediately. Hurry and make the call." He came over pretending to help me up, but instead shoved me harder. I fell straight to the ground, and consciousness faded. I thought I'd wake up in the hospital, but to my surprise, I woke up in Liu Ruyan's house. "Feng, you're awake. Does your left eye hurt? Dr. Li is just downstairs. If you feel any discomfort, just let me know." Her voice was unusually gentle, and she was taking care of me attentively. I touched the bandages covering my left eye, shook my head. "I should go home." Her hand on my arm tightened for a moment, but she quickly changed the subject, asking what I wanted to eat. I shook my head again, having no appetite. Besides, I felt I should keep a certain distance from my sister-in-law. I gently removed her hand and got up to leave on my own. But before I could take more than a few steps, she rushed in front of me, a mocking smile forming at the corner of her mouth. "Going home? What home? Back to that person you've only known for a few days. Shaifeng, you should know better than anyone. That's not your home. Even if you never go back, he won't come looking for you. Do you believe me?" Her voice grew suddenly louder at the end. The veins on her forehead were bulging with frustration. I said nothing, but it seemed like she was determined to prove a point. She grabbed my phone, insisting I call Feng Yixin. "If he picks up, I'll let you go back. But if he doesn't, you'll stay here with me." The phone was off. No one answered. I didn't react much, but Liu Ruyan laughed, her tone now softer than before. She gently guided me to the bed, as if comforting a child. "Feng, just rest and recover here. Don't worry, I'll make sure those who hurt you pay a heavy price." Later, I heard Zhangzi's company had gone bankrupt, and that's when I realized what that heavy price was. Every day, Liu Ruyan updated me on Zhangzi's situation. She told me she had poached all the technical staff from his company and now held control of their core technologies. She added that Zhangzi was running around frantically, begging everyone for help. But in the end, his company still went under. "Feng, my business is thriving now. The company is running smoothly, and I'm divorcing Zhangzi soon. Then we can finally be together." I didn't understand why she kept repeating that last sentence. I also didn't understand why she was so fixated on being with me. My injury was almost healed. Seeing that the weather was nice, I decided to go outside and enjoy the sun. But to my surprise, a row of bodyguards blocked my way. They told me that without Liu Ruyan's permission, I wasn't allowed to go outside. Just then, she returned and saw me trying to leave. Her expression shifted several times. Your injury hasn't healed for long, and you're already in such a rush to go back? You've been gone all this time, and that woman, she hasn't even called you once. She tossed her bag aside, continuing with an irritated tone. Feng, just give up. For the rest of your life, you'll only be with me. To me. It didn't matter who I was with. One of the bodyguards mumbled. He just wants to go out and get some sun. Her expression softened significantly. She then led me out to the yard, even preparing lots of snacks for me. She mentioned that for my birthday, she'd be planning a huge surprise for me. Later on my birthday, I finally realized her so-called surprise was Zhangzi. Zhangzi had been beaten black and blue, the result of a trap Liu Ruyan had set for him, tricking him into a debt he couldn't repay. He was covered in bruises, unable to pay off the massive debt. He'd been beaten severely, even left with a crippled leg. Zhangzi lay on the ground like a dog, unable to even lift his head. So, Feng, are you satisfied? He hurt your eye, so he had to pay the price. Zhangzi cursed silently. But I remained emotionally unaffected, watching everything unfold. It felt like reading a book with the dullest plot imaginable. Liu Ruyan had her men drag Zhangzi away. She took my hand and led me back to the room as soon as the door closed. She couldn't wait to put her hands all over me. Her arms wrapped around my waist, softly calling my name, Feng, over and over again. But after a long time, I still remained distant. Her expression darkened. Are you no longer interested in me? Or is there another woman in your heart? Feng, don't you want to marry me? Tomorrow, we'll get the marriage certificate. Tomorrow, we'll have the wedding. I'll invite all the media. Let everyone know we're married. Is that okay? Please say something. Just say anything, okay? Feng, I'm begging you, say something. She began sobbing uncontrollably, burying her face in my chest, her cries coming in gasping waves. I didn't understand why she was reacting so intensely. She kept asking me to speak, but there really wasn't much for me to say. Eventually, she cried herself out, getting off of me, her eyes red and swollen. If your goal is to punish me like this, then you've succeeded. But Feng, life is long, and I believe one day you'll come back to me. Liu Ruyan, can wait. After she left, suddenly a small note was tossed through the window. It was from Feng Yixin. He said he had been in a car accident and had just been discharged from the hospital. He told me not to worry, that he'd find a way to get me out. I stood by the window and looked down. His leg was still in a cast, and he was limping badly. When Feng Yixin looked up and saw me, his eyes immediately curved into a smile. He waved at me, silently mouthing the word baby. I just stood there watching him, not responding, not saying anything. I watched until he left. Liu Ruyan hadn't been coming over much lately, but every time she did, she would talk to me for a long time, mostly about our past. She reminded me how I used to make her breakfast, always trying out new recipes. If she was sick or feeling unwell, I would be the first one there to take care of her, even if it meant taking time off. I remembered all of this, but no matter how much she spoke, it didn't stir anything inside me. Seeing my silence, a wave of helplessness washed over her, her eyes gradually turning red, and her voice trembling slightly. I have some things to deal with these days, so I might not come by as often. But if you get bored, call me, okay? She got up from my lap. Her figure swayed slightly, but before she could reach the door, she suddenly turned back and threw herself into my arms again. Her hands gripped my clothes tightly, crying, "A Feng, I was wrong, I really was. If I could do it over, I'd never marry Zhangzi for the sake of my company's growth. What can I do to make you go back to how you used to be? I don't care about my company anymore. I don't care about him. Just look at me again, please." Her sobs were heartbreaking. But as usual, I felt nothing. When she finally grew tired from crying, as if accepting her fate, she pushed me down onto the couch. "A Feng, do you think if we had a baby, you'd go back to how you used to be?" 2 months later, Liu Ruyan came to me with a medical report. She told me she was pregnant. She seemed to be in a great mood, even taking me out shopping. Suddenly, I remembered the note Feng Yixin had sent me earlier that morning. He said today was the day he would rescue me. I didn't know if the two were connected in any way. As soon as we stepped outside, I ran into my mother. She looked completely disheveled, her clothes torn and ragged, her face lined with exhaustion, a far cry from the elegant lady she once was. When she saw me, her face showed a mix of confusion and regret. "Shai Feng ... son. Mom's sorry." She said she had no face to meet me, and that she knew everything Zhangzi had done to me. She explained that it was Liu Ruyan who had told her the truth. Liu Ruyan stood by, watching coldly, but didn't say a word. "If you have nothing more to say, then stop wasting time," Liu Ruyan said. My mother bit her lip, as if she wanted to say more. But when she saw Liu Ruyan's cold expression, her face flushed red with embarrassment, and she stepped aside. On the way, Liu Ruyan kept making me touch her belly, asking if I felt ready to be a father. I shook my head, still not sure what it meant to feel connected to her. She froze for a moment, her face suddenly turning pale. Just then, a group of people rushed out, knocking her to the ground. Someone grabbed me, telling me that Feng Yixin had sent them to rescue me. Liu Ruyan lay on the ground, curled up in pain, her lips a frightening shade of pale. She weakly called out my name, but I didn't turn back. "Baby, you're finally back," Feng Yixin said as he embraced me. "You have no idea how much I've missed your cooking these past few days." He hugged me tightly, running his hands over me. "You've lost weight." His eyes darkened with anger as he spoke. "That damn Liu Ruyan. I'll make her pay for this." I remained indifferent, showing no particular emotion. But Feng Yixin, on the other hand, was filled with concern. He told me that the car accident was actually caused by Liu Ruyan, that she had intended to kill him. She was ruthless. She wanted me dead, he said with a hint of sorrow in his voice as he leaned into my arms. "I was able to survive only because of my love for you, and it was only after I woke up that I saw how many times you tried to call me." "Don't be mad," I replied, my tone flat and composed. "I'm not mad." He immediately smiled. "Baby, I'm hungry. I want to eat something you made." I nodded, heading to the kitchen to cook. From the living room, I occasionally overheard Feng Yixin talking about handing over evidence to the police. When I brought the food to him, he didn't eat. Instead, he just kept staring at me. "Baby, I just realized you're pretty handsome. Would you be interested in becoming an actor at my company?" I didn't know if I was interested or not. To me, every day felt the same, no matter what I did. On second thought, what if you became famous? If you get female fans, I might get jealous. In the blink of an eye, 2 months passed. During this time, Feng Yixin said he was mad. He grabbed my arm, his eyes burning with anger. "Shai Feng, I haven't spoken to you for an hour. Can't you tell that I'm upset? What do you want?" "I'm really mad. You went behind my back and had a child with your ex." His eyes were red, and in my memory, I don't think I'd ever seen him cry before. Seeing that I wasn't responding, he pouted. "Even though she didn't keep the baby, I'll let it go." When I only responded with an "oh," he suddenly laughed in exasperation. "You're so heartless, but that also shows you don't care about Liu Ruyan at all." "Fine, I'll forgive you." I'm not mad anymore. But from now on, you can only be with me. Hurry up and nod your head in agreement, I replied, and then nodded. Inside, I remained calm. To me, it didn't matter who I spent my life with. Feng Yixin eventually had Liu Ruyan sent to prison. When we were preparing to go on our honeymoon, Liu Ruyan caused a scene demanding to see me. At first, Feng Yixin didn't want me to go. But in the end, he suddenly changed his mind and said, "You should go see her. I don't want you to have any regrets." Regrets, I didn't know what that meant. But since he told me to go, I went. Liu Ruyan had lost so much weight. She was unrecognizable. Her life hadn't been good at all. As soon as she saw me, the tears started flowing uncontrollably. I held the phone without saying a word. Feng, I miss you so much. I'm sorry we lost our child. I feel so heartbroken. I still didn't say anything. Her eyes were swollen from crying. In the end, through her sobs, she asked me, if you hadn't met Feng Yixin, would we still be together? I didn't know the answer to that. But I told her seriously, this world doesn't work with what-ifs. There's no way to go back, and no way to foresee the future. I really regret it. I truly made a mistake, she cried, shouting through the phone. I shouldn't have married Zhongzi, but this world has no what-if. I stood up to leave, letting her cry out behind me. Later, I heard she fell into severe depression and died in prison. She died in prison. Feng Yixin held my arm, saying, from now on, your world only has me in it. I didn't respond, remaining indifferent as always. He also said, I'll keep us tied together for the rest of our lives. I nodded. To me, it made no difference. Years later, as I lay on my deathbed, barely clinging to life, the long-absent voice of the system suddenly reappeared in my ear. Congratulations, host! You have successfully completed the punishment. Now you have one chance to make up for your regrets. I turned my head slightly and looked at Feng Yixin, who had been by my side the whole time. I said to the system, if possible, I'd like to fall in love with him all over again. Request received. Host, please close your eyes. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I first met Feng Yixin. It was then that I realized we had actually met long before. Feng Yixin turned towards the sound and smiled brightly at me. Baby, the company has a good reputation.